You're watching Moontower Soccer's Story of the Week, where Landon Cottam and Jeremiah Bentley discuss this week's most important, consequential, and interesting Austin FC news. All right, let's jump into soccer news of the week. The biggest story of the week this week is Austin FC's, can we say dominant? Is this a dominant win over the LA Galaxy?
It's about as dominant as you can win over the Galaxy, I think, this season, so far anyway.
Everything is relative. Right.
We haven't seen them blown out. We haven't seen, we haven't seen ourselves blow a team out, but we ran out to an early lead and then held it, which is also something we haven't seen this year.
We'll qualify it with relatively dominant. But yeah, Austin FC shuts out the Western Conference scoring leaders to get a decisive victory. How about that? A decisive victory over the LA Galaxy. And in the week at 7th place in the Western Conference, just a few weeks after we weren't sure we were ever going to win a game.
Yeah, it's been a wild first third of the season here for us so far. And I'm just so excited for what happens next.
So a bit later in the show, we'll go through some of the bigger match events and all of that. But first, let's just talk about some of the biggest storylines of the week. One thing I've seen a lot of discussion online about is Austin's possession in this game and in some of their wins and good performances this year. Austin ended the game with 41% of the possession. And I saw a lot of people kind of suggesting that Austin has been better or played better or won games only when they have less of the ball. And I don't think that quite applies to this game, because if you look at, like, let's say, look at the first, when was the first goal? In the 7th minute. The second goal comes in the 19th minute. At that point, Austin had 56% of the possession. So they were winning the possession battle up until that point. That's when they kind of changed tactics and kind of changed up their game plan and started giving the ball up a bit more. But yeah, it ended up 41-59 in favor of the Galaxy by the end of the game. And I mean, I'll take this as what I hope it means is that Josh Wolf and Austin FC are learning to play a different way when the game calls for it and when it's useful to them. And we've seen them try to change up shapes, change up tactics for midweek games when we're short on players or whatever. We're going to play a back five and see what happens. And it just looks like guys who are used to playing a possession game trying to play a back five, and they don't know what they're doing and they don't know what's going on. And whenever they go up 2-0 and they flip that switch, it looked like the game plan. It looked like they knew what they were doing. They were executing against a thing that they were supposed to be doing. And I'm hoping that's not a fluke, that this is growing, this is learning, and that this is them getting better.
The other thing that I thought was apparent in this game is that they weren't necessarily just sitting on a 2-0 lead. There were opportunities for them to try and add more to the total there, and they were doing it. They were taking those chances when they had them. There were a few more shots after that, really high XG shots, especially from Driussi that end up blocked or that end up just barely missing. And so it's not like the traditional, we've gotten a lead and now we're bunkering kind of mentality that we've seen in the 2023 version of Austin, or even the pre-Driussi 2024 Austin, right? Where we got a goal. Okay, hold on to it. And so I'm with you.
It was also more disciplined going the other direction, because you would see that, okay, we win the ball, we're going to break the other way. And it would be transitioning with 2 or 3 players.
Yeah.
Where the rest sat deeper. Certain players didn't go past a certain point on the pitch. And we're talking about the San Jose game a couple of weeks ago, where Josh Wolf says we don't want to get into a track meet. And as soon as anything goes wrong, we're in a track meet.
Yeah.
No, guys, this is what we said we didn't want to do. And the players were just amped up and just we're going to do it. We're going to go win this game. And I get it. It's San Jose. Yeah,
they're like our most natural rival, I think, you know.
the San Jose Earthquakes are a kind of drug that makes you go crazy. Um, but in this game, there were moments when, like, I think I was a little high on the San Jose drug, and there was like, okay, look, there's a moment to attack. Players are pushing forward, and then there would only be two guys trying to attack, and the rest of the players were like standing at midfield. And I was getting frustrated in the moment, like in the emotion of the moment, and then realizing like, oh no, this is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to stay right there so that when we lose the ball, Joseph Paintsill doesn't run 60 yards and score 1v1 with Stuver. And for the most part, they did that. They achieved this goal, and it was, like I said, I hope a good sign of them being a bit more disciplined in the moments when it needs that.
That said, I do think that there's a little bit of a point to the narrative online that possession for Austin doesn't always turn into winning numbers, right? In our three losses so far, we're averaging 57% of the ball. I know we've all heard it many times that Josh Wolf loves to say goals change games. And I think that's kind of indicative of that fact, right? When we look at, the way we played against the Dynamo, who we knew weren't going to bury chances that they had, we had 33% possession against that team, playing away. That's like the lowest number I can ever remember Austin having. Even looking back on last year's terrible team, right? Our lowest possession match last year was still 38%. And so, like, to come out of there with a 1-0 win and then to have total 41% possession against the Galaxy on a 2-0 win at home, I can see where this narrative is coming from, right?
Yeah. We're getting into this a little bit more with Paul Dolan in our Vancouver Whitecaps. I don't think we said that in the pregame, but we're gonna have Paul Dolan from MLS Season Pass to preview the Vancouver Whitecaps game, and we talk about that with him. Like, what is this matchup going to look like possession wise? Because Vancouver's a team who kind of gives the ball up at moments as well and just says, you have it, we're going to sit a little deeper and then try to break on you when you lose it. And so seeing how this matchup looks is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And then, both of those mentalities that we've kind of leveraged lately and Vancouver tends to leverage also match up with the league-wide analysis, right? That in MLS, unlike every other major European league, and some second-tier leagues, possession and points are not corollary. So in every other kind of big league around our quality or better, typically the team with the most possession also has the most points per game. In MLS, that is actually flipped in that teams with less possession tend to have a little bit higher points per game average. And so it's a very interesting kind of global soccer phenomenon that in MLS, possession doesn't always equal dominance.
Yeah. You'd have to think that like home the huge home field advantage that teams have in MLS just because of the crazy travel and also the parity in MLS that you don't have Barcelona who's just gonna, like, teams don't even try to press them. They're just
right, exactly.
We're gonna sit in our box. You come meet us
We're
here.
We're gonna hope to God that you don't knock one in. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not that. And so because of that, I think there are a lot more play styles that end up being viable options in MLS, even if roster construction limits that a little bit, right?
All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Diego Rubio. And I have this section in my notes titled Diego Rubio Dark Arts MVP.
Yeah, I'm glad you put this in this section of the show because I wanted to lead the show off talking about the Diego Rubio hat trick, and you made us put it lower, and I accept that. So
Well, yeah. What's a Diego Rubio hat trick, Mike?
Yeah, so for folks who maybe don't have a hockey history, right? There's such a thing as the Gordie Howe hat trick, which was a goal, an assist, and a fight. Because those were his hallmarks, right? He was a tough player who like supported his teammates and also could put one in the net. And there's a lot of that to Diego Rubio. I was shocked to find out that Diego Rubio hat trick wasn't already coined. But my pitch is this. A Diego Rubio hat trick is a goal. He gets a yellow card for doing something that's probably a red card. And then he draws a yellow card just by being aggravating.
Like forces someone else to get like to
Yeah. And in this game, he got the Diego Rubio hat trick within 10 minutes.
Oh, he didn't get a yellow though, did he?
No, but he definitely should have against Maya Yoshida, pushing him down in the box.
Maybe a penalty too.
And so, like, I'm willing to accept for the Diego Rubio hat trick either a yellow that should have been a red or a regular foul that should have been a yellow card.
I kind of think it should be any getting a yellow or deserving a yellow and then forcing an opposing player to get a yellow.
Yeah,
I think that should count.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So let's go through some of his highlights of the game. So very early, there's a corner. No, yeah, this is right after our first goal. There's a corner, and all you see, like in the original broadcast, and I didn't catch this live in the stadium, but all you see in the broadcast is Cáceres, their center back, shove Rubio, and he drops, and then just gets this look on his face, like, "How could you do this to me? I can't believe you could do this." And then they show a replay, and you see Diego Rubio just following Ricky Puig around the box, putting his chest on him and like just talking mad shit, just chatting in his ear. And then Cáceres comes up and pushes him, and he drops, and Cáceres gets a yellow card for it.
Unbelievable.
That was just the first one, one. And then like later on,
even before that, he's getting Ricky Puig so upset, and he pushes him around the field. Probably deserves a yellow then. But this one, like, that's not even the biggest deserved a yellow card moment.
Yeah, so the Yoshida and him go back and forth several times. Yoshida is like a big Japanese center back, like a tough dude. And they go up one time and trying to win, I think, a goal kick or something. And Yoshida kind of touches him on the back of the neck or the head. Rubio feels it. Not blaming him, not judging him. You feel contact like that, you drop. You're going to get the call every time. And Rubio knows this. He drops. Yoshida gets mad, but then like starts like gives him applause. Like, okay, good. You earned that one. Good job. And then later on, Yoshida's playing a ball out of the back, and Rubio leaves a little extra on one and knocks him down. And then later on, there's a corner. I think this is the point you were trying to get to, is the ref stops them twice, I think.
Yeah.
And like, this is usually Julio's job, right? Is the ref on a corner is going to come up and tell Julio at least twice during the game, like, hey, calm down, or I'm going to give you a foul. This happens to Rubio. The ref backs up, starts play again, and immediately Yoshida is trying to like loop around and lose Rubio, and Rubio shoves him into the goal
with both arms, like both hands, full shove directly into the post. Absolutely should have been at least a yellow. If that ball is in play, it's guaranteed a penalty. Like,
I just love that Victor Rivas, the ref, is like a stern and like respected referee in MLS, and he says, "Diego, you need to calm down." "Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And then immediately yeets one of their biggest players into the net.
My favorite was Victor's reaction to this too. Was like, "Come on, Yoshida. Look how little Rubio is, and look how big you are." He even does this like hand measurement thing to tell Yoshida why he shouldn't have gone down. Like, oh, we have not had a player like this since Felipe. I don't think
I think Diego's better than Felipe at it.
I was about to say, I don't think Felipe's as good as Diego is. I think we've got something really special here with Diego Rubio, and I am so glad he's on a 1-1 and not just a 1-year contract.
Yeah. And so later in the game, Rubio is receiving the ball like kind of in midfield. Fagundes, who comes on at halftime, comes in and fouls him really hard and takes the ball. And like Fagundes was upset that the foul was called at all. But then also, again, on the replay, if you watch, Rubio feels the foul, goes down, and on the way down, grabs Fagundes' leg and like rolls over it. It's like either as punishment or like saying, okay, if this foul doesn't get called, you're not getting that ball.
Yeah.
Maybe a little there.
And then Diego Fagundes is like kneeing at Rubio's back after the play, right? And Rubio's pushing on his legs. Like, it's just so playground.
And I think the best part of it all, and this is like one of the best moments, is like why it's so effective and why he's so good at it is because I don't think Diego Rubio is ever actually mad.
No, I don't think so either. I think he's having a blast doing it.
He's like playing the game. He's a great actor. And then you see in the speech after the game, he's just like the nicest man, like super thoughtful, very gentle speaker.
Yeah.
And like his English is fantastic and just like a great communicator. And then on the field, he's like this villain. And again, I don't think he's ever mad. I don't think his emotions ever get the best of him. I think he's playing a game 100% of the time, and he's very good at it.
Yeah, I think it's both telling and incredible that his comment was, "I've never played with a more honest group of guys." Meanwhile, he's playing this character the entire time he's on the field, right? Like he is 100% committed to the bit. And like afterward is like, man, I just really want to thank everyone in this locker room for being so honest and so committed and doing what we set out to with the plan from the coaching staff. Like, incredible. Josh Wolf in the post game talked about this and was like, yeah, Diego rides that red line like right up to it constantly and somehow never goes over. It's amazing. So like
again, because he never lets the emotions like boil over. He knows where he is and doesn't step over it. Where a lot of guys who play with that kind of energy, I think their emotions do get the best of them and do push them over that line sometimes. And you just don't really see that from him.
Yeah.
We mentioned Diego Fagundes. This is a point that I wanted to get into based on some conversations I saw online after this game. Diego Fagundes, of course, beloved by Austin FC fans, one of the highest performing players in Austin FC's short history, with mostly from that 2022 season when he was just lights out. Really, really as good of a season as Driussi had. I don't think he would have had that kind of season without Fagundes there. And Fagundes would have gotten a lot more attention if Driussi had not been having such a killer season that year too. He has a poor season. Roto comes in, trades him to LA Galaxy. Austin FC fans are heartbroken. I know what Diego's legacy is with Austin FC fans. What is Diego Fagundes' legacy in the Austin FC locker room?
Landon, what a spicy question. It's a Tuesday morning for the people listening to this. Are we sure that's a question? Like, so I worry that like we aren't part of these conversations, right? We can only go by what we see. And what we saw on the field Saturday is that people weren't afraid to stick it to Diego on the field. And he wasn't afraid to stick it to our players on the field.
Yeah. Gallagher got into it multiple times.
He came on the field and two-hand shoved John Gallagher down to the ground like almost immediately, letting him know, hey, I'm here to play. And John was glad to meet that.
Yeah.
And then, Johan Valencia subbed on, and like one of the very first things Johan did involved in play was a hard tackle on Diego in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And so at the very least, we know that they are not going to be soft on him during, the next match away in Carson.
Yeah. I mean, I think on the field, I don't think you should necessarily put a ton of stock into what happens on the field. These guys are competitors. These guys, like, during those 90 minutes, you're the enemy. And, like, even if they're best friends outside of the pitch. But what happens off the field, outside of the pitch? I know you sit over in that corner. Did you see any interesting interactions between Fagundes and players after the game?
After the game, I think the only player that I saw spend a whole lot of time with Diego was Danny. And that, like, on the rewatch was something else that I saw pretty apparently, right? They spent a lot of time showing that in the Apple TV broadcast as well. Other than that, there was the general, like, a quick hug, like, oh, good to see you, and then everybody kind of moving into their own spaces again. It didn't feel, for example, like when Sebastian Berhalter comes back with Vancouver and Danny and Owen, like, basically run over to give him hugs and, like, noogies and stuff after the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't that kind of a bond.
You also talk about like online presence where whenever Diego Fagundes, like, he posted a farewell message at some point, and
Yeah.
I saw people mention, like, pointing out, like, where are all the Austin FC players commenting on this thing? Because they do that, right? They'll comment on each other's social posts, and not that many of them did on this one. And so
I remember when Rodney left, even, Rodney gave a farewell post, and a bunch of the players shared it out or commented on it, oh, we'll miss you and things like that. And this was a guy that, Austin FC fans, we couldn't wait for him to be out of contract. And the players clearly had a different relationship with Rodney in the locker room. A lot of posts about, oh, we'll miss you, best of luck, da 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 da, things like that. Even Johan Romagna got love like that in his farewell post. And I didn't see much of that for Diego when he left last year.
yeah, I think as like upset as most fans were by Fagundes being traded, I think a lot of fans assumed that every player was as upset as they were about Fagundes leaving. And Mike, we've talked enough about our youth to know, like, I'm going to assume this thing about you, and I think it's probably true. You can tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm going to guess that when you were younger, and probably even now, that you had friends that you liked spending time with, you enjoyed their company, but probably wouldn't want to work with them.
Certainly. And I have friends that, like, when they have needed a job, I have wished them luck, but have not recommended them to open positions where I worked. You know what I mean?
And vice versa. You have people you work with and you love working with, but you're not going to hang out with on the weekends.
Right.
And so I think, again, speculating based on conversations from third-hand sources or whatever, that I think it's probably likely that a fair amount of Austin FC players did not appreciate the professionalism or lack thereof that Diego Fagundes treated his job with, and that for that reason that they were not necessarily super upset to see him be traded. Again, not all of them, probably some of them were. But I think it's like we view these guys as characters in a movie, and that everyone has to play their archetype or whatever. And that, like, they're people. They're normal people. Everything's gray. Nothing is black and white. Everything's complicated. That they're not characters in a book. These are normal humans like you and me, and life is hard. If you like this video, you can listen to the full episode at moontowersoccer.com or wherever you get your podcasts.